Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and guys, thank you so much for all the support. And today I'm coming to you guys with a new Hall Effect board from Akko. Now, this Akko Hall Effect board is supposed to be budget, and it also comes with their newest Akko switch. And of course, I'm gonna be doing comparisons between the Astrolink and this new one, and see what it's like. So please make sure to like and subscribe, and let's go straight into the unboxing. Now, starting off with the unboxing of the Tac75 HE from Akko. Thank you again, Akko, for sending me this out. And I was really excited to actually try out the new Switch as well, so it's really nice to have on hand. Now, inside the box, as you can see, their packaging for Akko is actually pretty decent. I think their boxes are pretty good in terms of packaging, but this cable here, gonna be honest with you guys, not the most amazing cable, really basic, and you get a very basic switch puller and keycap puller. Now, apologize for my voice right here. I do have an incredibly sore throat, so I lost my voice kind of, so hopefully this voiceover comes out well. Now, they do give you guys a manual here. It's just a small manual, and as you can see, now we're going into the keyboard. Now, this is a plastic Hall Effect board, and honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect. The plastic quality itself is actually pretty decent. The whole finish of it is actually really smooth. You do get a switch that switches from Windows, Mac, and USB mode, which I'm kind of confused of why it is in there. It could have just been easily a function key, so something a little bit confusing in there. Now, we do have to weigh the board before going to a sound test, and it weighs 720 grams. So I do hope the sound test helped you guys to be able to choose which switch to go with. And this Astroaim is actually pretty decent in terms of the sound profile. The plate itself on this thing is going to be a steel plate, though at first, when I first touched it, I thought it was a plastic plate. It was really hard for me to tell, but it is supposed to be a steel plate. Now, we're going to have to open up this board, and honestly, it wasn't too difficult to open. You just had to get into the sides there at the bottom. The first edge where the space bar is the easiest to open up first, and then going to the back. Now the sides are about 1.6 millimeters in terms of thickness, and the back 1.9, which is decent. Now I thought I could just pull it out, but no, this thing's actually screwed into the bottom of the case. So this is another hassle for anyone that has to take this apart to modify it, because this is not fun to do. And let me show you guys what keys you have to remove to find all the screws, because there's total 12. So as you can see, I removed all of the screws, and then I moved the cable so I can show you guys where all the screws are. For those out there, pause here to actually take a look to see where all the screws you can find are, because it's a little bit hard to tell when the letterings aren't shown on the top. So these are going to be all the screws you have to remove. There's quite a bit of screws you do have to remove to open this. And honestly, I think they could have done it a different way. Instead of doing a screwed in, I think they could have just done a full gasket mount. It could have been easily done with this type of case. Now, as I was saying earlier, right, it's a steel plate. Yeah, I did a lot of scratching on it and trying to see to make sure what it was. Now, let me show you guys the stabilizer. So it is a plate mounted stabilizer. It's the one that Akko uses on all their boards, and it does come pre-lubed. It comes decently pre-lubed. I would say there's quite a bit in there. But one thing I noticed was that these stabilizers still have a ting to it. They weren't really done well, unfortunately, which is not something great to have. Now, as you can see here, the plate itself is 1.2 millimeters, and so is the PCB, both 1.2 millimeters, but no flex cuts. It isn't a flex cut for either. One thing I did notice though is the PCB was cut very well, and it is really smooth on the back. It is a very well done board, honestly, and I do like Akko's quality in terms of their work, but this board is still definitely on the more budget side in terms of the build. Of course, we're going to modify this now, and it's time to bring back the infamous car sound dampening foam, because this board needs it. The sound profile on this board was so hollow, I could hear the hollowness from just typing on it. So I filled up the inside with it, even the top part, as you can see there. I filled it all up, all the empty spaces, and then put the foam on top of there. I think that was the best move to do, and then do a 2-layer tape mod. I think all these mods is going to be required to really make this board sound good. Now, of course, I got my lube with the syringe, and I looped up all the stabilizers because they were all tinging a lot, and I think this really will help, especially to get that tinging away. So every single stabilizer I had to modify, like every single one had to get the extra lube, because I could hear it when I was using all of them. And the spacebar specifically, you will have to do that as well. So keep in mind for yourself, for those that are out there. Sorry, you saw my head there a little bit. Sometimes when I have to get really in there, it happens. And then, of course, one thing I did notice as well is the spacebar has this really loud noise to it. And that means I need to modify it. So I used the car sound dampening foam, because I think it needs quite a bit of dampening to make it sound a lot better. So one thing I do love about the car sound dampening foam is easy to work with. It's hard to remove at the end, but very easy to add into your spacebars. And I think it's a good addition. Now let's hear a sound test of that. So we done the unboxing, we did the sound test, we did the modifications. Now, what are my thoughts on this board? In terms of having it stock, it's really not great. The sound profile is really, really not great. It has a lot of hollow sounds. You will actually notice it a lot. Like there's certain boards out there which I felt like there are places where like you can hear it being hollow. Specifically, it's a spacebar. This one's actually a lot of the right, like the sides, the edges have this hollow sound that you will hear it and it reverberates back to you. That's not a great thing, which is why I'm going to say you have to modify this board to make it sound a lot better. The switches as well, the new Akko switches will require to be hand lubed. If you don't hand lube them, it's not going to sound as great. It's going to sound a bit scratchy and feel scratchy as well. So keep in mind for that. In terms of typing wise, I think it felt much better once everything was done, but before that, it definitely felt scratchy and I could hear the hollowness to it. So we're gonna have to go straight into checking out to see like how this board is, review it, gameplay, as well as compare it with other Hall effect switches, or sorry, Hall effect boards out there. So let's go straight into that and see what this board is like. So going straight into taking a look at this board. So as you can see here, it's a 75% layout and the plastic quality is actually pretty decent. It is a very smooth finish to it. And as you could hear there, it is a decent plastic. And once I filled it up inside, the hollow sounds definitely got reduced. Now, as you can see, the design of it, it has these cutouts in there. I believe it's meant for wires, so you could most likely run a 90-degree wire, which might be really nice to run, or you can run just like through the middle as well, and it'll help you have a clean setup. So this is something definitely to keep in mind for yourself. It does help with a clean setup. I think I did break that toggle there for myself when I did put this back together. Unfortunate, but I think it's okay. And in general, you can make the changes in the software, which we'll go into very soon. Now, you do get those angles on the back, which is nice to have on a board. It allows you to have a little bit more of an ergonomic setup. One thing is the layout of the keys, like how the lettering is actually going to be angled. So you're going to have to actually look at it from an angle. But the thing about these kind of angles is the way that the keyboards are. The way you sit and how you look at it visually, it's not going to be a perfect view of it. So most of you guys will probably have to memorize your keyboards, but something to keep in mind for yourselves. Now, in terms of these switches, I think the Astroaim sounds pretty good. I think in general, once I've modified this board, it sounds so much better. I think if they did it this way from the beginning, this board would have sounded really, really good out of the box. It's just unfortunate. I think they should have added some kind of silicone in the bottom or something to really make it sound that much better. It would have really, really helped this board become something good. And of course, the space bar as well. I think maybe I need to modify it a little bit more because it doesn't sound amazing. Of course, we should go straight into taking a look of the switch. This is their new Astroaim, right? They did the Astrolink recently. This is the Astroaim. And as you can see here, the stem wobble on this thing is actually really, really well done. You get pretty much no stem wobble on this thing, which is very impressive, especially when it's not a box stem. And I was really appreciative of how they did it. I think Akko's making some really nice Hall effect switches, and of course, in the future I will make a video with like Wu-Tings for how it sounds, but I'll also have a new board that I want to put this into that might help more people be able to figure out if this is a switch that they should upgrade to. So we'll have to do that in the future, but this one, let's focus on the Astroaim, and I think it is really well done in terms of this board. But of course, we're also going to have to take a look at the backlighting of the switch, so backlighting of the board as well. I think in general, you have a gaming board, you do want to have some RGB coming off of your board, so let's set that up to take a look. And because it is wired, I do have to connect to a computer, a laptop specifically, just to show you guys. Now, one thing you can notice already is it looks really, really dim, and the lighting comes off green. That is because I do have like the RGB coloring going off. It's just you can't see the coloring well in terms of top-down angle. You do have to go through a bottom look. Now, when it is in person, definitely you can see it a lot better. On camera, you can see it as well. But as you can see here now, as soon as I angle it, it is so bright and it is done much better. I think, honestly, I'm not a big fan of the angled keycaps with like the lettering, or they should have maybe had some kind of design on the top. Honestly, like how Skylung did it, I think that is a really cool design that makes things like look much, much nicer, and it brings out a cool design for your board, but also has this clean design for it where the lettering is actually in an angle. But as you can see here, the coloring is quite accurate in terms of these switches. You're not getting a ton of color disfiguration, and it is actually quite bright. Like, this board has really bright RGB lighting for it. It's just you do have to see it in an angle because of how the keycaps are made. The tops are completely blackened out, so something to keep in mind for yourselves if you do want to have that, where the lighting is super bright, like all over. This is definitely going to be one of those you have to take a look at yourselves and yeah, see what you like personally. But of course, let's go into the software. So sorry, before the software, we should go into the website. So as you can see, the board goes for about $59.99 to $69.99. That's depending on the switch you get. The Astroaim is actually $10 cheaper. I wonder what the purpose of that is, but I guess maybe the terms of the quality, like the pieces, like the material costs in terms of making an Astroaim, might be just a little bit cheaper. So you do get 0.01 millimeters in terms of the actual actuation choices, which is really nice to have. You got the stabilizer feature in terms of their software, 16 kilohertz universal scan rate, 8K in the board snap key, which is technically snap tap or rappy snappy, or yeah, rappy snappy. Sorry, yeah. Snap tap is pretty much what it is. And in terms of this board, it's very simple. You know, those are the things that you're going to get from this board. You just have to go into the download section, and then you can search for it, but it's actually all the way on the top. So originally at first I was like, oh, maybe I should search for the keyboard name on the sides, because it can give you the manuals or it can give you softwares. I just realized if you search for it, it just gives you two, and it's the first software right there. So you just have to press download, and then you have the software that works. Now, one thing about the software is I really like it a lot more than what they originally had. So the Akko Cloud driver that was originally used, I didn't really like it, honestly. It wasn't the greatest one. This is so much nicer. You even have an AI assistant tool that you can ask it questions, and it's supposed to help you figure out your board, which is awesome to see. I mean, especially if someone's out there that isn't sure what to do, that's a nice feature to have. I think it's a smart feature to have, honestly. The thing about this software too is so much easier to like make the changes that you want, right? Changing keys and everything, like function keys, moving things around, macros, or changing like, you know, certain keys to different layouts. It's just so much easier that way. Also, when you do get your boards, make sure you always do the updates as required, the firmware version specifically. And then as you can see here, you get the lighting settings, which is really nicely done. This software looks super clean. I gotta admit how clean it looks. It's really, really nice to look at. It is technically a QMK, just cleaned over with Akko's like logo and such, but again, still clean, well done. Do appreciate it. And you also get like switch settings to be able to well calibrate your switches, and then you also have the simulation setting where you can check out to see what your pressing's like on the switch. I think every software should have that, and it's important to have just to be able to see for yourselves what you're working with. Now, in terms of actually doing the changes here, so you get the choices to just move it around, or you have those plus minus buttons, which will move it by 0.005, which is awesome. Like, it's really cool that you do get all the way to that like lowest point to be able to make the changes. You can go to advanced keys, easily set up like snap key, dynamic keystroke, super nice. And also you can change the keyboard polling rate, which I was wondering if like when you do keyboard inspector, would it really make big changes? And it didn't really do so, and I believe it's due to the scan rate of the board. So just keep in mind that. And of course, using keyboard inspector isn't the most accurate way to test these things. It's just the only way that I'm able to test to see and make sure that it is actually at the high point polling rates that they are mentioning. Because as I was mentioning before, like 8K and Hall effect is a little bit harder to track for them, and when you get to the higher polling rate, it is definitely not going to be as accurate. The 1,000, I believe they do very, very accurately, but again, it depends on the scan rate of your board, right? Like when I use a regular mechanical board, 1,000 always gets figured out. This time here, I think due to the scan rate, you don't really get that, as well as the rapid trigger. Now, I do want to show you guys in Apex, right, where I use, a Hall effect board the most, how it is used. Now, though going into firing range is this easiest method for me to kind of give you guys an idea of what I do with it. And the specific thing is super gliding. So Super gliding is a movement trick in Apex like that, what I just did there, where you pull off like a jump and a crouch at the perfect timing, where you were going when like you're climbing an edge, just so you can be able to be pushed forward like this with momentum. It is frame perfect. You have to be really frame perfect to make it work. Now, why is Hall effect boards really good for that? Because you can set the actuations, which mechanic boards you cannot do, to be able to really get it set so that you will have a much less error rate, right? You still need practice, of course. Like all of these things still need practice. It's not like it's a guaranteed boom, you're done. But one of the things is that it helps you be able to really make it much easier for yourselves. Now, another thing Hall effect boards is good for is picking up items. So as you guys saw me picking up items quickly, it just helps if you put your pickup to be like super low actuation to be able to beat someone a little bit faster on the off drop. And it's of course same ping. One thing else this is cool is, as you can see here, guns have recoil. It's not as bad in Apex, but in Apex, movement really does reset the recoil a lot. You still have to control a little bit, but it still resets it quite a bit. When you use a Hall effect board and spamming AD on a low actuation, actually kind of does the same effect, and you can actually really make the recoil much easier for yourself. That's something that I've learned over use, and I felt that this was a much easier use in terms of resetting my recoil than just moving around constantly. Because sometimes when you're shooting, you forget to move. But honestly, the most fun thing to do in this game is super gliding at movement tech, and Hall effect boards just make movement tech so much easier, and it makes it so much fun. Being able to pull it off often, sometimes in games, you think it might not be practical, but sometimes it actually does help. It got me a way to live a couple times before, and it also helped me be able to like catch up to someone. Now, I do want to go show you guys snap key, which is going to be the snap tap, and show you guys in the Valorant how to use it and if does it work well. So one thing I still forgot to mention before is you do get multiple profiles. It does. One thing I wish the software did have is like kind of like what Wooting has, which lets you know what the profiles are and you can name it. This one doesn't. You just have to kind of press FN and the profile key to get it there. So not the greatest thing, but at least you do have different profiles. So you can have a work setting and a gaming setting and be able to do those differences. But again, it's something that I think is really, really user friendly to have. Now, going into Valorant, let me show you guys actually using Snapkey. So keep in mind, I'm not very good at Valorant, or haven't played in a very, very long time. And I don't really do like Snap Tap at all. So for me, I've been trying to see like how it work for me, right? I got practice breaking before with mechanical keyboards, but one thing I realized with using the snap key is it works well. So it does work well, right? You hold A, you go to D, it will stick with the new key that you're pressing, so that you don't have to always be like letting it go and make sure to do it. So that's something that is nice to have. One thing I did notice is you really have to click your mouse at the perfect timing when you're stopping between the movement, because otherwise your gun recoil is going to like go to a random shot, right? It's not going perfectly into where you're aiming it at. It is gonna fling around. So this is something that you're gonna have to practice, of course, right? Again, Hall effect boards makes it easier for you, doesn't mean that it makes it automatic for you. Right? I think that's something that a lot of people think might be the case, but no, Hall effect boards makes it easier for you, but it's not an automatic thing. For the higher levels though, yes, of course, that means like it's a huge advantage compared to another player at the same skill level. But for your regular gamer, yeah, as you can see, like you can see how my bullets keep trailing off. It's because I'm not shooting at the perfect timing in between. If you can get that timing perfect in between, then yeah, you're gonna be able to, of course, beam people and like get really nice shots while you're peeking, or like you're trying to do dodge a bullet and move around quickly enough. So Snapkey does work for those that do play Valorant or CS, though I think CS you can't use it in game. So this is something you can see. Now, of course, we're gonna have to go into actual gaming. The reason I show you guys some gameplay is kind of my own experience of using it in game, right? How did I feel? Did I feel did the keys feel good? Did I have any issues with latency? Did I feel like some things were lagging when I was clicking stuff? One thing I did notice and feel is where the F1 keys are, it's a little bit far in terms of like distance from the number row. So trying to click onto the F1 keys was a little bit kind of hard to reach in a way. My hands are small though, so it's gonna be different per person, of course. But that's something I personally felt. But no latency issues, not at all, right? Like you saw me moving around. Nice things about holofic boards is being able to do the movements and pressing your skills and moving quickly. Really does help with those things, especially off drop picking up items too. And then as you can see, like as I quickly dash over, trying to get my way there faster. I think holofic boards just helps a lot in terms of that movement and being able to react quickly. Especially the way that I like to explain holofic boards to people is your specific reaction time is set, right? Like it can get better and you can do these things, but your reaction time is never going to get faster with age. It gets slower, unfortunately. But what holofic boards do, and I feel that it does, is that it makes your reaction times, it helps with it, right? It gives you that extra reaction time to go faster when you think you can't go faster, right? It's just that little bit of a edge that you get to react a little bit faster. Of course, if you're bad like me, and you can't really actually track someone, then it doesn't really matter too much. But it gives you a little bit of an edge that really helps when your reaction time is slow. Now, in total, this board really did work well for gaming. I did enjoy using it. One thing I did feel though was that it is quite light, so it will move around on your desk a little bit. Something to keep in mind for yourself, and as I was mentioning with the F1 keys. But let me show you guys a comparison of this board to other boards. Now, let's compare this with the other holofic boards that are out there. So I've tried out quite a few holofic boards. Now, I wouldn't say that I've tried out every single one and that I'm like the all-knowing of holofic boards. No, that's not true. Again, I'm not a competitive player. I don't know what it is like to use it in the highest scene. But as you can see here, I have quite a list of holofic boards. So this is 75%, right? This is made out of plastic. And one thing I noticed is that this one would best compare with very specific boards, right? So what would I compare the Tac75 to would be the Mechlands M75 because it's 75%, the Newfie Air 75, the Slice 75 from Chilkey, and of course the Eppomaker HE 75, which is also a 75% board, and total. And also the Wu-Ting technically I would say is a 75%. I know that it's an 80, right? It's a TKL. I would really more call it a 75%, but that's just me personally. So as you can see, the board is made out of plastic. Now, in terms of the plastic quality, I think it's pretty decent. Though, if you're comparing plastics, right? So we have the M75, which is at a similar price or the same price technically. We have the Eppomaker HE 75, and they're all three plastic cases. I would say the actual pure plastic quality, the Mechlands and Akko are quite similar, and the Eppomakers is okay, but I felt like the Eppomakers plastic wasn't really the best quality. It's not like you're getting a high quality plastic, like for example, when you get a Wu-Ting with the ghost casing on it. The ghost casing plastic, I think, is a little bit better in terms of compared, but these ones aren't like cheap plastic either. It's not like you're getting something that's really cheap feeling. Like there are certain boards that does feel like that. I'm gonna be honest, the M-Chose plastic is kind of like that, where you feel like it is a very cheap plastic. But again, the M-Chose is like a super budget board with like 8K, right? You're looking at $59.99. I think is completely fair with the Astroaim switches, which I think is a good switch. You don't really have to go with the Astrolink. They're both good. It's just depending on your personality and preferences of like the sound profile. So just choose what you prefer most. I think at the end of the day, when you go into this field now of holofic boards, there's so many out there, so many different companies. I would say like it comes to personal preference and what you prefer, right? What kind of sound profile, what kind of design do you like, what kind of layout do you like? I would say though the software for Akko is much improved now, like way better, and I would prefer this one over the Mechland software. This is just my personal preference. I think it's a better software for the Akko, and I think this one's also better than the Eppomaker software that was being used. I think those ones though are using an older QMK, maybe updated, but the Akko's one right now is really nice with like the AI and everything. it does do everything really well and makes it easy. It's like a easy to use software compared to what it used to be, which was, I think, a lot more complicated. I would say though, really now, like the top end of Holofic boards is still going to be your Wooting. I think Wooting still does it the best in terms of the software updates constantly with so much customization available. The Slice 75 also comes a really good second. I personally think that the Slice build quality though is actually better than the Wootings. That's just my personal thought though. Like I think it really has a much nicer case feel. It's really well done compared to it. And then if you go to like the most budget end, I think the M-Chose is going to be your choice for that. Like under $50 USD, yeah, you should get an M-Chose if you don't want to spend much money. In terms of really the mid-range now, right? Because I'd say the mid-range really comes down to around like $80 to $120. It's going to be your choice and your preferences. I do personally right now really like that Skylung. The no plate is actually really interesting to use. Sounds really cool as well. Very different than what you're getting with other boards out there. I also like the Newfie. It's a low profile though, so that's like it's the only low profile that I know of right now that's Hall effect. Actually, I think Razer recently is bringing out one or has brought out one. So it really will come down to your personal preferences of what you like. I really think the Akko is okay, right? You're not going to regret purchasing it, but you will require modifying it. So if you're okay modifying the board, moving the switches, then this is a board that you can definitely look at because it'll sound much nicer once you do so. And go check it out. I'll have the links in the description for you guys to take a look. So we compared this board with the other Holofic boards out there, and the price range on this one is really looking around the $70 range. Where would I place this? I think Akko's done a great job. The plastic build quality itself is not a cheap plastic. It doesn't feel incredibly cheap. It does feel very light. If you are someone who likes the 75%, I would say that this would work well for you, especially if you aren't looking for like an incredibly heavy keyboard. The only thing is though is I think the new Akko software is much better now. Like I have to admit, Akko's software for the Hall effect has improved so much compared to what it used to be. Originally, when I first tried the Akko's Hall effect board, the software was really mediocre and I really didn't like it. This new one is much better, much more upgraded, as I was mentioning. Where would I place this though? It's hard for me to say specifically like this is going to be the best budget Hall effect board. The reason being is that there's so many Hall effect boards out there, but they're all different layouts. See, at a 75% layout, I don't have a budget one that's like comparable. Most of the budget ones that I have are around the 60 to 65% mark, which they're very cheap, right? They're like about 40 to 50 USD. This one's going to be about $20 more to about $30 more, depending on the, what kind of options you choose. And for this one, I would say it is a decent pickup. I wouldn't say it's the best pickup, but it's a decent pickup if you're looking for one that has, like a really nice switch, and it is a 75% layout, right? At a 75% layout, this one does feel more comfortable to use, of course, with the F keys and everything. Honestly, 75% is one of my favorite layouts in a board. I personally enjoy 75s the most and 65s. Like, they're both quite equal. I'm not a huge fan of 60%, and I'm not a huge fan of, like, TKLs, and really would not use a full size. But for a 75% board, I think definitely this is something to go take a look at for yourselves. Please take a look at like how I modified it. I would really highly suggest you do. Once you do modify it, which is of course going to take some work, then I think it's a good board that's worth your while. Like, it would have been nice if they really did add a little bit more inside this board just to fill it out a little bit in terms of dampening. I think then it would have been perfect on launch. But you guys can check out my video of how I took it open and of course how I modified it, and I think it'll really help you a lot. And of course, I'll have to catch you guys next time, but please go check out the other videos I got.